Welcome to the ProFarmer Podcast, your source for what's impacting prices today and your guide to what will impact markets in the weeks ahead. More substance, less fuss. The ProFarmer Podcast starts now.
Welcome to the ProFarmer Podcast, everyone. Davis Michelson here. We're here to talk markets, talk about what went on last week and what we expect this week. It is March 16, 2025. I've got Hillary Mason here with me to talk about markets, what she might expect from the coming week. Now, Hillary, glad you're here this morning. We had a bit of a rough week last week. We got wheat futures down, corn futures on Friday, ended the day down. The bean market perked up just a little bit toward the end. They're added a nickel on Friday, but then we go to cotton, we're higher on the livestocks. Maybe we can spend a little bit of time on cattle and hogs toward the end here. They took off to the upside as well. Talk to us about last week and how the markets sort of felt ending last week, Hillary.
I think confused would be the best term to describe last week. It was just, it started out funny, and then we had USDA report on Tuesday, which seemingly got lost in the abyss just because it didn't entail many changes from January or February. But USDA did note their data was based on current trade policies. Unless there was a formal end date, those policies remain in place. They did make make reference to Canada and Mexico in those notes. And so the market really just didn't. It just kind of brushed it off, especially, as we entered into Wednesday, tariff talk really overtook the marketplace and volatility really surged. Longs really started to run for cover just because recessionary fears started to really rise. You saw equities really start to decline as well. And you also saw some not so friendly dialogues with some of our global customers. And then you throw in, the Russia-Ukraine situation and, the trying to force an end to that, or trying to find an end to that rather. And also Congress working towards a continuing resolution. So there was just a lot happening. And I think traders just really, kind of really just wanted to remove risk. And so that was a function of a lot of last week's trade.
Hillary, we've kind of seen this sort of trade since the first of the year. Let's just call it to be general. Nice run up after those Jan 10 reports, and we've kind of given it all back now. I'm feeling like we've dealt with this uncertainty, these tariff talks, all of the things sort of roiling in the markets and in the global economy right now. At some point, do you think maybe the market just sort of gets used to it and settles down just a little bit, even though we may still have some uncertainty out there? Is that a thing?
Absolutely. I think it's all, even though, it's Trump's second term, it's still new. And he's got a different strategy this time around. And so I think the markets, traders, the marketplace in general is just trying to understand, his approach, what he is doing. And so and I think it will, as time progresses, the focus is going to lean more towards as spring planning approaches, especially especially with global and domestic ending stocks being so tight. Corn plantings are going to be pretty important, and so as time progresses, I think things will kind of even out a bit. I do the recessionary thing. That's going to be that could be a driver, though. As time progresses. So,
absolutely. Now, I'm going to talk with Lane here in just a moment about exports. He and I started a conversation on tariffs last week, and I want to continue that on the export front there. But when we're talking about the soybean complex in Canada and China, that relationship is heating up, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah. On the global stage, really, just the trade flows are just really kind of they feel like they're starting to really change. So,
yeah. Well, talk to me, set me up for the week ahead here, Hillary. It's sort of easy to lose your footing in markets like these. What are some things that you might be looking for in the markets this week? Something you can give us to hold on to?
Sure. So this week, just a few data points. So NOPA will release their crush data today. They are expecting a decline in February, pretty sharp decline. Soy oil stocks are expected to go up. The big data point this week will be the FOMC meeting, which starts tomorrow and Wednesday. Largely the marketplace is expecting, no changes to rates. However, there has been kind of a shift, throughout the marketplace where traders are expecting, maybe more rate cuts this year, maybe beginning in June. So everybody's really going to be tuned in to what, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has to say on Wednesday afternoon after that FOMC meeting wraps up. Also we have IGC. They're going to release their monthly grain report. And we're going to have some updates from China as well. They actually updated some economic indicators this morning that were actually much stronger than expected. So that should give the market a little bit of a boost here, which is happening. So
lots to keep our heads around here in these markets. Hillary Mason, thanks for giving us a little bit of perspective. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Lane Acreage to talk about global trade.
Hey everyone, Davis Michelson here, and if you're one of the listeners without access to ProFarmer's daily market reports and policy insights, this message is for you. Right now, you can start a free trial to ProFarmer, unlocking the same profit-boosting information that farmers have trusted for over 50 years. Sign up online at tryprofarmer.com. No credit card needed. Visit tryprofarmer.com to sign up and get more details and updates on the topics we're discussing today, plus much, much more.
Welcome back to the ProFarmer Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hey, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You'll be able to get updates from the ProFarmer Podcast each week. Now with me is Lane Acreage. Lane, last week we did talk about the tariff situation, a whole big kerfuffle going on in the markets right now, but we can't lose sight of export activity. Can you give us an update on exports? We had some daily sales activity last week, but I don't want to lose sight of this important avenue for U.S. grains.
Yeah, we mentioned last week with the price decline that we saw early in the month and late February about how important last week's export sales report was. We had written about it quite a bit in our daily newsletters as well. But with the price decline that we saw and knowing those tariffs were in place, seeing how exports reacted in the first week of March was key. And we saw a pickup in exports, especially in beans, which was really good to see. We also saw a huge increase in wheat. So prior to last week's report, wheat exports have been pretty abysmal, and it's been really discouraging. And USDA even reflected that in last week's report, lowering their export forecast. But with last week's strong sales, amidst the big price decline that we saw, it's a really good sign to see export demand returning to the U.S. market, despite all of the tariff talks and increased tariffs going into place. Of course, like Hillary mentioned, USDA didn't reflect a lot of the upcoming tariffs are going into place the first week of April. So it'll be key to see how their reports reflect that next month, but that April WASDE is still quite a long ways away.
Well, and when we're talking about those exports, I look for traditional buyers to show up. Colombia, Thailand, Japan would be great. Are we seeing our traditional trading partners showing up here as prices kind of are a little uncertain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mexico continues to buy both corn and wheat, and China's still in the market for soybeans. So that's been really good to see, especially with the Brazilian harvest picking up here and a lot of Brazilian supplies hitting the world market. But China's pretty tight on soybeans right now, and with a lot of Brazil's beans just still en route and not able to get on boats super fast, the U.S. is still the most logical source for beans in the short term.
Well, and that South American crop was billed to be a big one this year. We know that we've already lost some export demand to Brazilian crops. I reckon we can expect that to continue, especially if they've got a bin buster down there in South America.
Yeah, Brazil's harvest been picking up, and we saw today that most of their crop is already harvested, and that's just going to continue to weigh on U.S. exports. But that's the case every year, and we've already seen a lot of USDA's forecasted exports. They're already gone. So really, we can just kind of limp into the end of the marketing year and still hit that 1.85 billion bushel mark that USDA has set out. And there was a lot of concern that we weren't going to get there, but the balance sheet for soybeans remains pretty favorable despite all the trade talk that we've seen. But attention is going to shift to the Acreage report here coming up here in the next few weeks just to see just how many of those soybean acres are going to be switching to corn. It's been pretty obvious that there's going to be a significant shift, but the magnitude is still kind of yet to be determined.
Well, and that's a pretty good little segue there. ProFarmer will release its acreage survey. That's on Friday, March 31st. I know you've worked really hard on it. It's a terrific survey. We do it every year. Without giving away any of the details, can you talk about that survey just a little bit, Lane?
Yeah, we had the best response in years this year. And, that's thanks to our subscribers. Like 60% of the survey respondents were ProFarmer members. So big thank you to all our subscribers and filling out that survey. It's a great help, and it helps us provide the best results as we possibly can. So that's going out to subscribers via email on Friday. It's also going into the mail on Friday. So that should be in mailboxes early next week, and that'll give an insight into where our acreage survey stacked up. In the last few years, our acreage survey has been dead on with that USDA prospective plantings report. I mean, it's been very close, so it should give a really good insight into where USDA will end up at the end of the month.
Outstanding. Well, I can't wait for the subscribers to be able to get a hold of that. If you're interested in ProFarmer and would like to learn more, you can visit tryprofarmer.com. That's tryprofarmer.com. So until next week, thanks to Hillary Mason, of course, Lane Acree, I'm Davis Michelson for ProFarmer.
Thanks for joining us. We'll return next week with another episode of the ProFarmer Podcast. And remember, everything talked about today is updated throughout the week on ProFarmer.com and in this Friday's ProFarmer newsletter.